You're listening to Coupled With, the podcast that helps you take the guesswork out of feeling seen, heard, and valued in your relationship. If you've ever felt stuck in the same arguments, struggled to stay connected, or wondered how to better communicate with your partner, you're in the right place. I'm Dr. Rachel Orlick, a couples therapist and coach, and together, we're going to make relationships make sense. Let's dive in. I'm bringing back this one because it covers something I don't think we talk about enough. And their response when it first aired told me a lot of you agreed. The same pursue-withdraw cycle that shows up in conflict shows up in the bedroom too, just sometimes in reverse. One partner reaching physically, the other emotionally. Both are trying to get to the same place, and somehow we keep missing each other. This conversation with Dennis and Kim Eames, EFT therapists and a married couple, gets into all of it. Before we dive in, if this show has meant something to you, please take a moment to leave a rating and review. Like Twirly Swirl, who wrote, "I just listened to this podcast for the first time and it was so real it brought me to tears. So healing." I am so glad this is a place where you can find that kind of relief. Okay, let's get into it. You're listening to Coupled With, the podcast that helps you take the guesswork out of feeling seen, heard, and valued in your relationship. If you've ever felt stuck in the same arguments, struggled to stay connected, or wondered how to better communicate with your partner, you're in the right place. I'm Dr. Rachel Orlick, a couples therapist and coach, and together, we're going to make relationships make sense. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Coupled With. Today I got to sit down with two people who live and breathe the work they teach, Dennis and Kim Eames. They're not only EFT couples therapists, they're also a married couple who have done this work inside their own relationship. We talk a lot on the show about the pursue-withdraw cycle in love, but here's the twist. That same push-pull shows up in the bedroom too. One partner might crave emotional closeness before their body feels open for sex, while the other feels like sex is the doorway to emotional closeness. You can imagine how that might set up some fireworks, or more often, long stretches of silence and frustration. Dennis and Kim call this the crisscross pattern, and in our conversation, they break down how it plays out, why it's not about who cares more, and how couples can start translating their bids for connection, whether through touch, words, or presence, so they don't keep missing each other. This is a tender, candid, and really important conversation about intimacy, safety, and why desire is never just about sex. Welcome to the show, everybody, here today. I am joined by Dennis and Kim Eames, and they are also EFT, emotionally focused therapists. And in this practice, we talk a lot about the emotional cycle and the relational cycle, and how important that is when we're thinking about the pursuing partner or the anxious partner and the withdrawing or the avoidant partner. But today we're going to be talking about intimacy and sex. And is there a cycle that comes out when we're talking about intimacy with couples that might be different than the relational cycle that we're used to talking about?
Yeah, they're often kind of what we would think of or call a crisscross pattern, where one partner is reaching or pursuing for emotional connection, and the other partner is withdrawing from that. That's kind of foreign territory, and they are withdrawing from that, but they still want to be connected and close with their partner, and they have a different channel that they're reaching for connection in, and that's through the physical intimacy channel. And so the emotional withdrawal strategy is often kind of typically sexually pursuing, and the emotionally pursuing partner is often sexually withdrawing because it's a different channel than kind of what they're primarily kind of trying to reach for. But they're both trying to get the same thing, connection, closeness, to know that they're not alone.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I often talk about it in my practice with my clients as being this gridlock where one person really wants that emotional connection in order to let their body feel more alive and free and be open to their partner, but the other partner needs that physical connection in order to feel more emotionally connected and secure. And so that they end up butting heads sometimes in that area.
Correct. And butting heads and also disconnecting. They're both trying so hard for connection. And as has been discussed before with the emotional connection or the emotional cycle, when one person pursues, it feels terrible to the withdrawer. When the withdrawer withdraws, it feels terrible to the pursuer. And that dynamic shows up in their sexual cycle.
Yeah.
Where when one person is being pursued sexually, it feels kind of too much.
Like all you care about is my body. All you want is you don't really care about me as a person and being connected to me. You just want sex.
It can often feel like a lot of pressure on one side to make themselves physically available, or it can feel like rejection or abandonment on the other side that they have to be perfect in order to then,
Hmm.
I don't know what the right term
Yeah.
would, but deserve the physical connection that they're longing
Mhm.
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. I had one client kind of put it like, I need to be emotionally safe enough and almost perfect at that so that she feels safe enough to have sexual connection with me.
Yeah.
And that's like almost an impossible bar to reach, to ever like to never do anything that kind of leaves our partner feeling hurt or unsafe, especially when we are trying so hard to get this substitute or kind of stand in for the closeness we're looking for. Like, well, if I can never do anything wrong, then you'll want me sexually. Or if I can give you enough pleasure in bed, then you'll want me sexually. You'll want to do it more.
There ends up being a lot of quid pro quo kind of thinking around sex and intimacy when really it just comes down to how do I know that I'm desired, I'm wanted, you care about me, and you love me?
Am I lovable?
Yeah. Am I lovable? Do you appreciate me? Do you want to be with me? And when we're trying so hard to get one type of connection that then leaves our partner uncomfortable and they kind of put the brakes on that and try and kind of come back with their own kind of connection, it just intensifies it. And their kind of reach back for emotional connection can put a sexual pursuer back into like, I've got to try harder. Um, like we need to have sex by this date or we're done. And that just kind of creates that panic of the kind of emotional pursuer of like, "What? You're going to leave me if we don't have the good enough sex by this date."
Yeah, that's
And
terrifying.
then yeah, they emotionally pursue harder. Like, no, if you just like do this or you do that, then I'd be more interested in having sex. If you just did the dishes, so that I knew that I mattered to you and my time matters to you, then I'd be more interested in sex.
And they're accidentally sending the wrong message to each other, which
Mhm.
is you're not
Yeah.
valuable without the sex, or you can never get it right enough.
Yes.
Yes. And I love how you put that, Rachel, that it's an accident. We are never intending these terrible, hurtful messages that we send each other. And yet the impact on our partner is this: I'm not good enough. I'm not desirable. I'm never going to get it right. It's never enough for you. And we both send those signals to each other unintentionally.
And then we get more polarized into our own kind of position and strategy.
So, where can that leave couples over time?
More and more alone, more and more desperate, and more stuck. And I think as couples therapists and EFT therapists for a long time, we've done a disservice to couples by only prioritizing the emotional connection and telling the sexual pursuer, oh, your connection is that's less mature, that's less grown up. We need to value and treat them both as equally important and be working and talking about both cycles, both desires for connection And as that kind of cycle gets worse and worse, the risk of being vulnerable gets higher and higher. And so we get less and less vulnerable. Like I think of kind of one couple that the wife had a really rough week and problems at work, health problems with her family, and she was just feeling really beat up and she wanted connection and comfort from her husband. Sex was the only way that she knew how to ask for that. The stereotype is it's usually men, and I think it's probably more often men than women that are the sexual pursuers, but it can be both. So that's what she described to me after
Wanting that connection. I
like,
need connection with my husband because I feel so beat up after this week.
and I need that comfort with him. What she asked him was, "Will you go down on me?" He had no way of knowing that she wanted connection and comfort. It was just like, "Will you give me an orgasm?" is what he heard. And he's like, "No, I can't do that. I need to know that you want me as a person, not just someone to kind of stand in and give you some pleasure."
Make you feel better.
So, how do you balance that? Because there is this body impact for the person being asked of physically. And if they push through and provide it, then they might be giving their body the signal that it's not safe and could actually
Mhm,
increase this cycle over time by making it less connected sex and more obligatory
mhm.
sex.
A couple of different ways that we engage sexually when one is pursuing and withdrawing, talking about solace sex, which is a anxious pursuit kind of sex, and sealed off sex, which is more of the withdrawing sexual position.
So the experience that I kind of know best is my own, but I kind of hear this from a lot of other clients too, um, that I was in this sealed off sex position. I didn't really want to have sex unless I was feeling emotionally connected and wanted by Kim, but I would go along with it. But that kind of builds up that kind of what you were just talking about of that resentment. And I've heard clients say, like, I'm starting to feel like I'm just kind of prostituting myself. I'm like giving my body, hoping for emotional connection that it'll lead to emotional connection, and it doesn't. And eventually we can get to the place of a sexless marriage of like, no, I can't keep being sealed off and having sex anymore.
And the solace sex for me as the sexual pursuer, and I was coming from a very, very anxious place. That for me, reaching toward Dennis sexually was not necessarily about us connecting. It was more about me feeling like I was loved. And so that I was reaching toward him for that connection, but it wasn't a connection for both of us. It was a means of me feeling like I was okay.
I think for us and a lot of other couples, recognizing the pattern and what's happening is a big part of the first step. Oh, I'm wanting to be close to you. I'm asking you to have sex with me, or I'm hinting and kind of pursue sexually. Sometimes it's verbally, like, hey, you want to go upstairs? Sometimes it's like non-verbally, like I move from touching your shoulder to like my hand moves down. Like that's my signal that I want closeness with you. But to just start to be more explicit of like, I want to be close with you. That's why I'm doing this. We had a couple that would kind of translate their kisses or their affections for a while. Like, this kiss means I really want to be close to you. This kiss means I really appreciate kind of what you did for me here. This touch means I really care about you and I want to know that you care about me too. I'm hoping that you'll respond to my touch with some touch of your own. Just let me know that you care about me.
In essence, offering emotional connection at the same time as the physical connection to help the other person link the two and feel like their needs are being met alongside the intimacy.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, for the emotional pursuer, linking the message of I want I'm reaching to you to help me with my kind of discomfort. I'm not reaching to you and asking you to do this differently because you're failing. I'm reaching to you because I need you. I do want you.
You're my person. You're the one that I need. You're the one that I trust to bring me comfort, contact, and care.
It's so important that those messages become explicit so that we aren't getting stuck in this cycle again and again where you're getting
Hmm.
pulled apart, that we're owning what's happening in that moment and helping our partner's nervous system de-escalate and calm down and be more present. So even if it's at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm understanding is even if it's not sex that happens in that moment, if that person's body is like, I can't do that right now, but it's, I do want to be close to you. I do want you to know that you're wanted and I can be here and I can hold you, or I can hold your hand, or I can kiss you,
Hmm.
and allowing them to know that they're not being rejected as a partner. It's
Hmm.
just a specific act they're
Hmm.
not open to in that moment.
Yeah. And oftentimes, because we don't talk about it, we just kind of like test the waters and see if we get the response that we're looking for that gives us a kind of a green light or a yellow light. And oh, nope, yellow light, we're back off. And we don't talk about it. There's a lot of missed opportunities for both the physical and the emotional connection. And one isn't more important or valid than the other. They're both equally important.
They're just different languages of love.
Yeah.
I like to tell clients that it's important to not only have the emotional connection, but you want to have the mental connection, the sexual connection, sometimes the spiritual connection.
Mhm.
And all of those different levels are areas that we can come together on.
Mhm.
And when we're talking specifically about the sexual cycle or sexual connection, it is so important because you are making yourself physically vulnerable. And so that vulnerability that like it takes strength to be vulnerable. And so for that vulnerability to come forth, we've got to be able to connect with each other on all kinds of levels to
Yeah.
make that sexual connection feel safe, feel safer. That's one thing I love about EFT is helping people connect in different ways, helping people see how much the connection is important and helping to take the ambiguity out of what I'm trying to communicate to you, whether I'm communicating with my words, my emotions, my body. How am I communicating with you? And I
Mhm.
love what you said, Dennis, about this couple who's translating their kisses and their caresses. And you and I do that too. It's like I come up and might give you a kiss on the ear, and it's just like, hey, I just want you to know that I'm thinking about you and give you a little smooch. And I think that really helps the two of us with our ongoing
Hmm.
connection.
Yeah. And as the and largely kind of emotional pursuing strategy person, having that translation is really important. And they're like, oh, no, it's me that she wants, not just the physical.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you notice happens inside your body when you're having a moment like that versus the times that you had spoken about before where you got into this negative cycle where it was just about the physicality in your body?
I think for me, I'm a lot more relaxed that because Dennis and I have done our own EFT work with our own relationship, and I am no longer in that anxious place of am I good enough? I'm no longer kind of trapped in my own fear. And so I can reach toward Dennis in a sexual way that's no longer fraught with all of the anxiety.
Mhm.
It's more of it's more playful, and it's more, it can be spontaneous or responsive, but it's more, I think playful is probably the best word for it. And it's more about connection for us rather
Mhm.
than something for me. And so what it feels like,
Let me pause here for a moment because if you're listening to this podcast and thinking, why do I spiral like this in relationships? You're not the only one. A lot of thoughtful, emotionally responsible people find themselves lying awake replaying arguments, trying to hold the relationship together, and quietly wondering if their needs are somehow too much. I created a free 10-minute training called Why Love Feels Like Too Much, where I walk through what's actually happening underneath those moments. We talk about the hidden cycle couples get pulled into, why your nervous system reacts so strongly when connection feels uncertain, and a simple 3-question reset you can use when you feel the spiral starting. If that would be helpful for you, you can find the link to it in the show notes.
Is is lighter and
Yeah.
less tense, less kind of grasping. That's the
Yeah.
word that comes to my mind.
Yeah. And for me, when I'm already feeling emotionally close with Kim, I want to have that physical connection more and more. And so as our relationship became solid and secure, and I rarely kind of doubt that anymore, that has turned me into a pretty frequent sexual pursuer after a long history of 20-ish years of being kind of rarely of feeling that closeness that kind of would lead me to sexually pursue.
Quick pause here, because what we're talking about in this episode is often part of a larger pattern. One partner starts trying harder to hold the relationship together, the other partner starts pulling back, and both nervous systems end up feeling more and more overwhelmed. If that dynamic feels familiar, I made something that might help. It's a free 10-minute training called Why Love Feels Like Too Much, where I explain the cycle that escalates both partners, and a short nervous system reset that can help you interrupt the spiral before it turns into another painful fight. You can find it at the link in the show notes. Yeah, there is so much research around how feeling secure in a relationship really does open up the avenue to become more playful and adventurous with sex.
Mhm.
And having that emotional basis to know, like, I am safe here, this person cares about me, they care about my experience, really does allow a lot of those walls to come down and have that connection just be so much stronger.
Stronger and safer.
Yeah.
I think of a particular incident with Dennis and I where he let me know, he was explicit, I'm interested in sharing love with you. And I told him, "Well, my feet hurt and I've had a really long day and I'm willing to see if I get interested." And so we kissed and cuddled and caressed and I eventually became interested. But I felt safe enough to let him know I'm not sure that I'm up for this. And he didn't take it as a rejection. He didn't feel like there was anything wrong with him for wanting to be physically intimate.
Yeah.
And he was willing to just take it slow and see where it went.
Mhm.
And we had that freedom to not be so scared of, oh, will she be interested in me? And do I have to perform? Like, I didn't feel like I had to perform. And he could take a maybe and it was okay.
It sounds like that's when it switches from being just about the physical pleasure to being about the connection in the relationship, where you can have the physical pleasure, but it really hits on a much deeper level than
Yeah.
just that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It makes me think of a couple that part of their cycle was he would initiate with a physical signal of moving kind of hands from kind of more neutral territory to a more erogenous kind of territory. And she would say, "Do what you need to do." And he'd stop because that wasn't what he was looking for. He was looking for sexual connection, intimacy. Um, and she wasn't offering intimacy. She was offering, "I'll just lay here and let you do what you want to do."
Yeah.
And it's like that isn't fulfilling in a relationship. She wants passion, but that they've never been in a place where they could like either of them be vulnerable enough to create that passion of, but they're moving in that direction.
So, Dennis, you spoke of now that the relationship with you and Kim is so much more secure that there's been this switch for you where you have become more of a pursuer. And I talk to my clients a lot about the spontaneous and more responsive styles of desire and arousal. And in what you described, Kim, there was this like, I might be more responsive today. I'll see how it goes." But in a relationship where it seems like one person is strongly the more spontaneous one and the other person is strongly the more responsive one, where the spontaneous partner might be initiating almost exclusively because it might not be on the other partner's radar on a day-to-day basis. What would you want those partners to know, or what could be something that they could keep in mind to maintain their connection when that could potentially lead to disconnection?
I think as we've been talking, I keep kind of thinking of this kind of psychological term of complex equivalencies of like, if you do this, then it means this. If you have sex with me, it means that you love me. If you close the cupboard doors, then it means that you love me. You hear me and you love me. And we reach for that kind of substitute of, if I get this, it means this. We reach for that substitute. Reaching for that substitute creates a kind of a backfire because it comes across differently to our partner. We get scared that they don't want us and we back off and we stop, or we press harder and we like then kind of up the pressure. Neither of those, like upping the pressure or just kind of giving up, kind of work very well. But to be able to like be explicit about what's happening in the moment, be vulnerable, like, hey, this is really hard. Like, it seems like you're not interested. Like, I'm in the mood and it seems like you're not interested. Like, are you saying you want me to just kind of drop it and roll over and go to sleep? Or is it okay for me to keep kind of caressing you or rubbing your shoulders or something? And if it doesn't lead anywhere else, I can be okay with that.
I think that's something important too, is to recognize that responsive and spontaneous, neither of them is better than the other. Neither of them is bad. Like, just because I might be the more spontaneous one doesn't mean that my partner's not interested. And I think if each person can remember that my partner's different than I am, my partner thinks differently than I do, and that's okay. Because the one who's more responsive, and like you, I love how you said that, Rachel, that it's just not on their radar, that it's not like they don't want to share love with their partner. They just don't think about it as much. And so to have their partner reach out, to have their partner initiate and be spontaneous like that actually helps, because they do want them. It just doesn't occur to them as much. And we have a client where they are right now in their both of their emotional and sexual cycles. She's just not as interested in being sexually intimate with him. And yet, the fact that he reaches out for her reminds her we are still connected. We are still together. This is, even though I can't really respond right now, I don't want him to stop. I don't want him to give up.
And it gets really hard for him to keep kind of trying to get a hug or a kiss or something and to have her pull away
Oh,
and to
yeah,
have
it's
that
just like this
occasional kind of
constant state of rejection.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it really helps him to occasionally hear like, yes, I don't want you to give up on this part of our relationship. Just like, it gives me hope that you haven't given up, that we can kind of get to this other place that both of us want to be. I know how hard it is for you. I appreciate the sacrifice that you're making for our relationship and my comfort level right now.
And in these seasons, prioritizing that, seeing each other and prioritizing emotional connection and being able to reach out in whatever way they can in that moment so that
Mhm.
they don't feel like they're completely disconnecting.
Yeah. And it just like the more hurt we get, the more polarized we get. And so even small things that we can do to start to change that pattern, like, can we just sit on the couch and cuddle? I would really like to be intimate with you, but being close to you really matters to me. And can we just do that? And when you feel safe to go to kind of cuddling without our clothes on, then let me know. But I'm like, I want to have, I want to have whatever connection, physical connection I can have with you. And I'm willing to stay at this level until you let me know that you're feeling safer to go later, instead of like trying to get that little bit of connection and kind of like, oh no, I'm being rejected and pulling away, and then kind of going quiet and kind of physically moving away, which communicates to our partner like, oh no, you don't want any sex is all that you wanted, beginning to give more clear messages.
Which can be really giving those clear messages can be really scary. And when we're listening to the fear, we get what the fear expects. And
Yes.
so realizing in myself, okay, I'm afraid that my partner doesn't want me. I need to be able to check in with my partner so that I can help relieve that fear instead of just acting on the fear and then getting what the fear expects because I'm acting in some weird way. Then if I can stop listening to the fear as much and start speaking to my partner about, granted, things that are not easy to speak about, it's so incredibly amazing when we see clients take that step of courage to speak about something that's difficult, to speak about themselves in a way that they haven't before. I would love to have sex with you. And if all we do right now is hold hands and cuddle, I'm okay with that. And I think that's part of it too, is being okay with not having the full meal deal,
Hmm.
Yeah.
being okay with steps leading to that. And for each person to feel like I can give this much, and the other one being that much is enough. That
Yeah.
much will give me that connection. And for people, especially for the sexual pursuer, to remember that they're reaching for sex for the connection. If they can let themselves receive connection in different ways, in less than intercourse, if they can take in that lower level of connection, it's still going to feel good because it's connection. And they're just so used to, oh, it has to be sex. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. And when they're able to take that part of it in, that smaller part of it in, it still feels good.
It still feels good to them. And then it also sends the message to their partner of, you are enough.
Yes,
Yes.
you are who I want.
We've talked a lot about, we've talked about the sexual pursuer, sexual withdrawer, emotional pursuer, emotional withdrawer. One thing that's super, super important to remember is that these are strategies. These are not like personality traits. These are not who you are.
Right.
These are things that you do because of a need inside of you. And that's not a bad thing. We all need connection. We
Mhm.
all need emotional connection. We all need physical connection.
We all need to know that we're not alone, that we're loved, that we're
Yeah.
wanted.
Absolutely. It's
And
built into
so,
our nervous system.
yeah, we're wired for that. We're wired to be connected to each other. And so, whatever strategy you use, it's not wrong. It's not bad. Nobody's broken.
I think another thing that can help in that is to kind of put ourself in our partner's position. They're reaching for connection in a different way. What is it like for them when they reach for intimate sexual connection and they get rebuffed? What is that like for them? I know what it's like for me to reach for emotional connection and I get feel rejected or rebuffed. They're like, this is happening for my partner too. What is it like in having some compassion for what it's like for them?
I know exactly what you mean. I think it's 3 things that I'm hearing that are the really important things to keep in mind. One, if you could take in even a little bit of that full connection, whether that's emotional or physical, then it still feels good. You're giving your partner the message that they matter, that they're important, that what you want is them. And it helps them feel more secure and attached. Also, sending the message of, this is good enough. being able to verbalize that and not just have
Mhm.
it be something that we think is explicit, because sometimes the sexual withdrawer needs that message in order to feel safe enough to come towards. It'll still be okay
Mhm.
if I can't make it all the way to intercourse. And then the third thing is remembering this is how we respond to stress. And when we feel disconnected from our partner, and what we're trying to achieve ultimately is that connection. So thinking, I know what it feels like to be the sexual pursuer or the emotional pursuer, and know what that feels like to have that rejection or to feel not important. And can I think of it on the other side? And
Yes,
what's a
hugely
small move
important.
that I can make to really verbalize my care and love for that other person? Is there anything else before we move to wrap up that feels really important for our listeners to hear today?
I think for me, it's simply a small amount of courage can go a long way.
Hmm.
That if I can take just a tiny piece of courage and speak to my partner in a more explicit way, and I don't mean explicit as in sexually explicit, I mean explicit as in this is what's going on for me. Here's what's happening for me and how I would like to connect with you. And that does take courage.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
so just a little bit of courage can go a long, long way.
Yeah. Safety is built on the back of tiny risks over time.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and helping us have this really important conversation that we don't talk about openly as much as I think we should be, because this is just a different type of connection. And like you said, it's not better and it's not worse than emotional connection, but the two need to be intertwined to feel like we're having that full and deeply connected relationship. And when you feel emotionally connected, it can make you feel a lot more playful, adventurous, and you might even become the pursuer in the sexual relationship. I hope that you felt as seen by this conversation as I did. What I love about Dennis and Kim is that they remind us sexual cycles aren't about performance or perfection, they're about connection. Whether you're the one reaching out emotionally or physically, underneath it all, you're both asking the same question: do you want me? Do I matter to you? If today's episode stirred something up in you, take a moment tonight to translate your own bid for connection. Whether that's a hand on your partner's shoulder, a kiss on the cheek, or just saying out loud, I just want to be close to you. Those tiny moves are what shift this cycle. If you want the guided version of this work, my private audio series is linked in the show notes. You can start anytime. That's it for today's episode of Coupled With. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe so you never miss what's next. And if you found it helpful, please share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review. It really helps more than you know. And if you're curious about how we might work together or want more resources to strengthen your relationship, head over to my website, www.drrachelorlick.com. You'll find free tools, podcast extras, and ways to go deeper. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time. If you want the guided version of this work, my private audio series is linked in the show notes. You can start anytime. That's it for today's episode of Coupled With. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe so you never miss what's next. And if you found it helpful, please share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review. It really helps more than you know. And if you're curious about how we might work together or want more resources to strengthen your relationship, head over to my website, www.drrachelorlick.com. You'll find free tools, podcast extras, and ways to go deeper. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.